Project Phi invites for all, for now, how to solve the women in tech problem, and Google Glass to help with autism. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 448 for Monday, October 19th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Epson's new EcoTank printers. With Epson's line of SuperTank all-in-one printers, you can print thousands of documents without running out of ink. EcoTank is loaded and ready to print when you are. Visit epson.com/ecotank to find out more. Welcome, I am Megan Morrone. Let's get to the tech news. An anonymous teenage hacker told the New York Post and CNN that he broke into the personal AOL email account of U.S. CIA Director John Brennan. Now, this could be a hoax, but CNN says the FBI and the Secret Service are taking it seriously enough to look into it, even though they claim that no classified information has been accessed. The CIA issued a statement saying that they were aware of the allegations. Google's new invite-only Wait Forever wireless project is now open to all, but just for today. The Verge says that for the next 24 hours, Google will hand out instant invites to mark the official release of LG's Nexus 5X. To get yours, go to that's fi.google.com. The offer expires at the end of the day today, October 19th. To use Fi, you'll need a Nexus 5X or a Nexus 6P and a Gmail address. Today, U.S. Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox confirmed the rumor we heard last week that federal regulators will require recreational drone users to register their aircraft with the government. The details still need to be sorted out, but officials hope to have the National Drone Registry set up in the next few months. Wired reports that researchers at Stanford are using Google Glass to help autistic kids learn and recognize facial emotions. One of the researchers, Catalin Voss, helped build an app for Google Glass that can tell the wearer if people are happy, sad, surprised, or disgusted. They sold the face and eye tracking technology to a Japanese company that now uses it in cars to improve safety by determining if you're looking away or if you fall asleep while you're driving. Now Voss is working with Stanford School of Medicine to create a kind of Google Glass interactive learning experience to help treat autism. However, Steve Silberman, the author of the book Neurotribes, The Legacy of Autism and the Future of Neurodiversity, told Wired that this is not the first time people have tried to teach autistic kids more complex emotions using basic emotions, and it might not be as effective as it appears. Over 1 million U.S. children under the age of 10 have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And coming up, Erin Carson from TechRepublic talks about the Grace Hopper Women in Computers Conference. But first, this episode is brought to you by Epson. Epson's revolutionary EcoTank line of printers for home and office introduced a new age in printing. The new EcoTank ET4550 wireless all-in-one printer doesn't use ink cartridges. Instead, it features an innovative refillable ink tank. It comes with enough ink to print up to 8,500 pages. That's equivalent to about 50 ink cartridge sets. You're loaded and ready to print for up to 2 years. Powered by Epson's leading-edge precision core technology, it delivers high-speed, vivid colors, and laser-quality black text, plus auto two-sided printing, a 30-page auto document feeder, and easy wireless printing from tablets and smartphones. All EcoTank printers deliver an unbeatable combination of convenience and value with ultra-low-cost replacement ink bottles. Now you have the freedom to print without running out of ink. Visit epson.com/ecotank today to transform the way your home, office, or work group prints. For the best combination of ease and value, turn to the new Epson EcoTank printers. That's epson.com/ecotank, and we thank Epson for their support. Journalist Erin Carson writes about technology and is no stranger to strapping on giant VR headsets to chronicle the history of VR at NASA. She's also gone deep into IBM research labs to meet the scientists using mobile devices to detect early-stage dementia. Recently, Carson spent some time covering what is in some ways an even more complex topic in tech today, gender equality. Carson attended the Grace Hopper Women in Computer Conference in Houston, Texas, and she's here to talk about some of the challenges and possible solutions presented by some of today's tech leaders. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks for coming back. So you start with Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube, and she was one of the most powerful people in tech right now. How did she break down the problem with women in tech at this moment?
Sure. So she was super thorough, and that was one of the things that was kind of the most enjoyable part of her talk. And she boiled everything down to basically there are problems with perception, meaning, there are reasons why perhaps little girls think that they would not be good, in computer science, or that, the culture is sort of unwelcoming to them. There's also, massive pipeline problems. How do you get folks interested and sort of educated and hook them up with like mentorships and, different things like that? All the reasons, why right now we're really suffering from a lack of women in computer science programs and, that sort of thing. And then retention, if a woman can manage to get into some type of computer science job, there's a huge drop-off rate for, as she progresses in her career, as far as if she's actually going to stay there. So those are kind of like the main points that, Susan sort of broke down. So it was really thorough. And if you're sort of not super familiar with the topic, you check out that write-up, it'll kind of put you in a really good spot to understand what's going on.
Well, it's really interesting. She talks about how big this problem is, using an example of her own 10-year-old daughter who said the computer wasn't for her. And she was shocked because this is, her daughter has been at Google, at YouTube, just around many women in the field of technology since she was a baby. But then, she just said, well, my brother uses the computer, that, he's taken it over. So I just thought that was really interesting. About how big the problem is, and so what were some of her suggestions for changing this?
Sure. Well, it's kind of got to be across the board. One huge factor is culture, and she was talking, for example, about what companies are doing as far as like paid parental leave. And so she was talking in her time at YouTube, for example, or at Google, for example, that they saw that when they increased paid parental leave from 12 to 18 weeks, they saw a drop-off of 50% in the number of new mothers who quit their jobs. Because that's a crazy time. I mean, I don't have kids, but I've had friends who have kids, and if you're kind of starting down that road, it's overwhelming. And I think that extra time kind of helps women feel like they're actually going to be able to stay in this job and have support and resources and whatnot. And she also, talked a lot about something that they're doing is they're supporting a documentary called Code Girl. And it, one of the aims is to present, women in coding in sort of a more positive light and show folks that this is something that you can do, that there's not like one way that you should be or you should look if you're going to be an engineer. It's really something that anybody can do. So yeah, kind of myriad ways, but I think it's really an issue that has to be attacked from various points, and there's not one silver bullet, and there's not one thing that, fixes everything. So she really emphasized the companies need to kind of look at all these different exit ramps potentially that women can take, from the time that they're thinking about getting into the industry to the time that they are in it and trying to move up, and see how they can make sure that they're not taking those exit ramps.
Yeah, the culture problem is not just the it can be like a bro culture, but it's also just that kind of intense culture of you have to stay at work until midnight, and that kind of thing I think really turns off women. And now it seems to be more acceptable to me from what I've seen for men to be turned off by that culture, also to just say I don't want to be working crazy. I want a life. I want to live the rest of my life. So. I think that if we can start to change those things, it would be great. So you also heard Sheryl Sandberg talk from Facebook. Now, she gets a lot of press and a lot of criticism. She talked about pay inequality, unconscious bias, the mommy penalty, cultural perceptions. What was your biggest takeaway from her keynote?
Yeah, well, the phrase that she kept repeating was, "It's real." And this applies in a few different things. The first time she said it, I think she was talking about the pay gap. And, the statistic that gets sort of flaunted the most is that women make 71 cents to the dollar compared to men. And you have a lot of people out there that just say, like, that's not true, that's a lie, there's factors for why that is. And one thing that she made sure, she kind of walked through a couple of scenarios where if you're kind of factoring in for certain differences, even in the most conservative math you do, you can really only get it up to 91 cents to the dollar. And that's something that's still not okay. But, it's interesting to kind of still be at this point where someone like Sheryl Sandberg, her repeated message is like, this is real. This is real, whether it's, like you're saying, pipeline problems, retention problems, culture problems, the pay gap, unconscious bias, all of that. She was just so emphatic that this is a thing,
Did you get the feeling that, that she is in a lot of rooms with people where they're saying, like, telling her this seems like a myth?
I think so, because I think, my impression, working in tech journalism, is that something you run into a lot. There are certain cases, obviously, if you have a room full of women who, are currently working in tech, there's probably a decent majority of them who experience it firsthand. But on the other side, you have plenty of people that just deny, and they just say, well, I've never seen it, I haven't experienced it, and this is, there's genetic reasons for why women aren't into, tech or, kind of other bogus ideas like that. So, yeah, it's still super, super common.
So I love the quote about this that you tweeted during her talk about women who are thinking, well, this is just an environment that isn't comfortable to me to stay in. Like, these are not my people. And what did she say to women who were considering leaving the field?
She was just saying, just stay in it for yourself and stay in it for the folks who come after you. And it seemed like that was something that's hugely important because this is a long-term issue. So, on one hand, I think there's the idea of if you're in computer science, if you're in tech, if you're in IT, as a human being, like you don't want to be pushed out. You want to pursue what's sort of like your right to do, a career, right? And then the other factor is that, when you're kind of looking on a long range, every woman that manages to stay in tech and push forward and get those promotions and kind of, win those battles over time, she's gradually breaking down stereotypes. And every time that happens, every time that, she has some success, it's going to make it easier for all the kids who are coming up. So that was a message that she was, again, pretty emphatic about.
So you're with a lot of people in technology. You do a lot of interviews. What's been your experience as a journalist writing about technology and science? Do you ever feel like you're treated differently than your male counterparts?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. For me, I've been fortunate in that I haven't had anything incredibly outrageous happen. But I think what is the case for a lot of women is kind of like a slow drip that kind of wears over time. And so the things that I come across most often is people assume that I'm either, not that technical or honestly just like not that nerdy. So I think one of my favorite things is I had someone like assume that I did not know what Reddit was and tried to like explain Reddit to me. like I've been like living under a rock, I had a similar thing with like Lord of the Rings, which is like very random. And he was like, oh, I don't know if you know about like Lord of the Rings. Like, no, never heard of it, and I guess in a little bit less humorous way, something else that I've also encountered and have, spoken with, my female friends who are also kind of in this field and really in just general life is, there are definitely times if I'm with a male colleague and I'm talking to, a certain type of male IT professional or whatever the case may be, they're more likely to make eye contact with the man than with me. And so it just kind of takes that extra little bit of assertiveness to be like, nope, I'm here too. So it's funny because it's one of those things that when you start listing out those experiences, they can sound incredibly trivial. Like, are you really complaining that somebody didn't make eye contact? But when it's over the course of years and years and years, it's not trivial. So.
Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us. Erin Carson is a staff writer at TechRepublic. If you want her to write about something, make sure to call her Erin and not Eric, as yes. Many people have gotten confused. And yes. She is Erin Carson on Twitter. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thanks so much for having me.
Take care.
You too.
And finally tonight, who has Star Wars fever? I have Star Wars fever. StarWars.com just released the official theatrical poster for the film that comes out on December 18th. If you want to buy tickets in advance, like the nerd you are, you can do so tonight, right after the trailer premieres during Monday Night Football in the United States. Check out the list of participating theaters. And that is it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. Thanks to Aaron F. from North Dakota, who wrote in about the academic implication of the Google Fair Use ruling that we talked about on Friday. He writes, I'm a university researcher and often need to reference out-of-print scientific articles and texts for my work. It's extremely frustrating when scientific research is hindered by publishers' unwillingness to make old books and print resources available in any form, especially since researchers' use of text in their work often falls squarely in the realm of fair use. I look forward to the possibilities that might result from this ruling. And Aaron does university research in abstract mathematics and material science, but he adds not at the same time. As always, I love getting your emails at megan@twit.tv or your tweets. I'm at Megan Morrone, or your messages on Facebook. You can follow us at Tech News Tonight. You can also subscribe to this show at twit.tv/TN2. You can write to us at TN2@twit.tv and watch live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today. That's every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Megan Morrone. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.